You sit there, restless, staring at the same four walls, convinced the clock's hands mock your stillness. Yet, what if the motion evades your sight not because it ceases, but because your eyes refuse to perceive the subtle rhythm beneath? Is it not a cruel jest to call yourself stagnant when the unseen currents of progress whisper in the silence of patience? Have you learned to read the quiet signs, to heed the motion in your very breath, or do you wait, blind and idle, for an explosion rather than nurturing the gentle flame? The mind, like a well-tended garden, reveals growth only if you commit to the slow, deliberate act of cultivation. To expect sudden leaps without the tender sowing of seeds is folly. You bind yourself with the chains of impatience, missing the steady unfolding hidden beneath what appears like inertia. Does your frustration stem from haste or from the blindness that fails to celebrate the invisible steps? Comment 1 if you find yourself caught in this unseen dance of slow progress, or comment 0 if you believe stillness marks your fate, yet grasp the truth we lay bare. Subscribe and ring the bell to catch every spark of wisdom from Pi Franklin, lest the quiet moments of growth slip through your fingers unnoticed. Recall that the wise man does not chide the snail for its pace, nor does he scorn the seed for its silence before sprouting. Instead, he understands the virtue of patience paired with vigilance. To stand still is choice made, not condition born. The fool waits for fortune's favor to burst forth like lightning, while the sage molds discipline into the daily ritual that calls progress forth in subtle form. Consider this. The river cuts through the hardest stone not by might, but by persistence. So too does your subtle movement carve a path through the bedrock of your being, imperceptible to the hurried eye, but undeniable in the making. You are not still. You are bending slowly with the tides of change, though the shore seems unmoved. Such is the paradox Franklin would delight in, a man surrounded by noise, yet attuned to whispering winds. The real motion is never loud and brash. It is the soft turn of the world beneath your feet, the incremental adjustments shaping the sculpture of your soul. Let this truth anchor you. Moving unseen is no failure, but the hallmark of steady wisdom. Stillness perceived too quickly masks the undercurrent of alive becoming, where the patient engineer of self gathers strength. In this silent vigilance lies the promise of transformation, one almost invisible moment at a time. You sit there, believing you're motionless, when all the while your mind is a labyrinth filled with echoes of not yet, soon, I need more time. How cleverly these phrases disguise inertia as preparation. You convince yourself that this is readiness, that this gap before action is essential, sacred even. Yet in truth, these illusions are more like ballast weighing down the ship you've already set afloat. Each "I'm not ready" is a stealthy chain, invisible yet unyielding, forged in the smithy of your doubt and fear. The mind is a cruel scribe, deft in etching these falsehoods into the stone tablets of your belief. You repeat them often enough, whisper them in the quiet moments until they hiss through your veins like gospel truth. I need motivation, you say, but motivation rides upon action, not precedes it. To wait for motivation is to wait for the wind to fill your sails while your ship remains anchored. Consider the farmer who waits for the perfect dawn to sow his seeds. He could wait forever for the ideal hour, the most radiant sunrise, yet the day grows old, waiting for no one. The earth is neither obliging nor cruel. It simply responds to the seed planted with diligence and faith in the unseen growth beneath the soil's surface. So too does your growth begin not with fanfare, but with the silent act of planting your intentions, even when the spotlight of certainty never shines. The mental trap is a vortex, spinning on the axis of right time. You tell yourself, when the conditions are just so, I will move. But therein lies the sorcery that ensnares you. The perfect timing is a myth polished by procrastination's steady hand. It's a mirage shimmering on the horizon of your resolve, always distant, always shimmering with impossible clarity. You might imagine that the remedy is more planning, more groundwork, more preparation. Yet this too is the sly fox that slips in and out of your consciousness. Planning without action is like drawing maps in the sand during a rising tide. The sands wash away your designs while you remain fixated on the gestation of your perfect plan. Each day spent perfecting the plan without taking the first step solidifies the illusion that you are advancing in the shadows. You convince yourself that you lack clarity, but clarity comes through motion, not before it. The path does not reveal itself fully from the heights of idle speculation, but through the pressure of your footsteps breaking the ground. You believe you lack resources or skill, yet every craft is honed by doing, not by yearning for ideal conditions. Think of Franklin himself, who did not wait for thunderous inspiration before dipping the quill. He wrote, reasoned, and experimented. His genius was not in waiting for lightning to strike, but in becoming the steady spark that kindled progress daily. The irony is stark. Waiting for the perfect circumstance to blossom is often the seed of perpetual waiting. The very thing you think will liberate you, readiness, motivation, clarity, is the very web that binds you. To wait for fire before lighting a match is to resign yourself to darkness. The match, when struck, can summon the fire itself. This self-sabotage hides in plain sight, dressed as prudence and wisdom. Yet every moment lost to hesitation is a fragment of life surrendered to the void. The longer you cling to the belief of stillness as safety, the deeper the roots of inertia embed themselves in your soul. The subtlety lies in how these traps masquerade as virtue. To be measured, to be cautious, to prepare, these are lifelines, yes, but only when balanced by the courage to begin. Without that courage, these virtues calcify into shackles, robbing you of possibility. To excavate yourself from this mental quicksand, you must face an uncomfortable truth. Waiting is its own action, a deliberate surrender to inaction. You are moving, yes, but in circles that reflect back on themselves, the wheels spinning mud and nothingness. The cost of this entrapment is not merely the hours lost or opportunities missed, but the erosion of your own sense of agency. Each deferred motion dulls the muscle of will until it numbs and forgets its own strength. Ask yourself how many moments have slipped through your fingers while you awaited the storm's cue or the perfect breeze. Consider how your own fear has been a master painter, cloaking your potential in smoky veils of hesitation. You chase an ideal that does not exist, not because it is unattainable, but because it is a fabrication of your own making. It is the mirage of stillness that fools you into believing you stand firm when you do not. Like the paralyzed poet, frozen in the liminal space between thought and pen, progress is thwarted not by the absence of desire, but by the tyranny of conditions set too high. Can you now see the dusty mechanics behind your paralysis? The imprisoned desire that demands perfect conditions before it will dare? The intricate dance of self-denial dressed as self-care? Your subtle movement is indeed occurring, but it is shackled by the illusion of required readiness. You are bending with the tide, yes, but only to gaze helplessly at the rising waters, not yet willing to swim. Consider the irony of the man who waits to feel ready before he feels ready, thus never truly crossing the threshold. The gateway of action demands no herald. It is often unadorned, uninviting, and yet it opens only to those bold enough to step through unready. Now, reflect on the cost if you continue to emulate the myth of stasis. The moments to live fully pass, the days to wrestle with your potential vanish, and the life you might sculpt remains, in all likelihood, a blueprint forever unbuilt. You are not a statue carved in stone, immobile and eternal. You are clay, soft and waiting for the hands that will shape you through imperfect, hesitant, yet undeniable acts. This is the paradox and the challenge, the truth Franklin would urge you to confront. The very readiness you seek may be found only when you step out unready, carrying the burden of unknowns as proof that you have abandoned false refuge. To stay frozen is to surrender small victories to the tyranny of waiting. To move, even imperfectly, is to reclaim your authorship over time and your own becoming. Will you listen, then, to the whisper beneath the clamor? Will you see the subtle shifts where others see stillness? Or will you allow the illusions you have nurtured to calcify your potential into dust? The choice, though cloaked in invisible threads, is yours to seize. And seize it you must, for to remain is to lose not only opportunity, but yourself. You are not paralyzed, Rather, you are rehearsing for yet unseen scenes. The slow pirouette of hesitation is no imprisonment but a quiet preparation. Think of the dancer who does not leap before warming her limbs. The grace comes not before the motion, but through it. You wait for confidence, but confidence is what comes after you act, a reward woven from the fabric of your first uncertain steps. Movement is the knife that cuts fog. Your indecision is the mist that veils the path. Yet the simple act of stepping forward cleaves the haze, reveals the road beneath trembling feet. You imagine stillness as solid ground, but it is the motion that composes the floor on which you stand. The plank is nailed by your will to move, nails forged not from certainty, but from the grit of persistence. Understand this: discipline is not the cage, but the key. Freedom is not granted from without, but won within through the repeated insistence to move anyway. To wait for passion, to hope for a sudden surge of unbidden zeal, is to misunderstand the alchemy of progress. Passion is a flame built, painstakingly, from the tiny sparks of deliberate motion. Your belief in immobility as a condition blinds you to the more profound truth that every still moment is peppered with subtle pulses of becoming. The seed does not roar as it pushes through, yet it breaks earth all the same. The river that sculpts canyons whispers in soft persistence, not tempestuous shouts. You do not stand still. You are creating the preliminaries, the blueprint, etched in quiet. This is organic momentum. Think of the clock, its hands sniffing seconds away from an eternal now. Does the clock wait to strike, or does the march of moments compel it, regardless of your gaze? Motion is the great artist painting the masterpiece of your life. Sometimes in bold strokes, often in faint whispers. Your task is to tune your eyes and soul to discern the subtle brush. Reject the absurd logic that stillness precedes preparation. Let go of the myth that readiness must arrive cloaked in thunder. Readiness is born of movement. To begin is to claim it. You must be the architect who lays the first imperfect bricks, rather than the dreamer adrift in plans. You are the smith forging your character on a relentless anvil. Each strike, each choice to inch forward, bends the metal of your being into form. The hammer is imperfect, your hands tremble, and yet the anvil sings a steady song of progress. Motion is not the interruption of fear, but its adversary. Look beyond desire for grand gestures. Instead, find solace in the cadence of small acts. Momentum is the quiet drumbeat which, when kept, drowns out the chaos of hesitation. The first step may falter, but it is the pulse that starts the rhythm. You serve not the illusion of readiness, but the reality of growth. The irony is that you think you need a push, but you are the one who must give yourself one. You wait on motivation, but motion begets motivation, just as the river's flow awakens the banks rather than the other way around. Do not wait, for waiting only deepens the mire. Go now, imperfect, unsure, and unarmed, except with the will to begin. This moment you think you lack is the very crucible that shapes you. Hesitation and fear are not barriers, but the raw materials you forge into resolute stepping stones. Nothing moves in isolation. Even the faintest motion stirs the air and shifts your inner gravity. You are not static. You are latent energy seeking release. Like the coiled spring under tension, not tension, but release defines your next shape. You are not stuck. You are poised. The dance awaits the moment you decide to step forward, sway, and learn the rhythm by feeling it in your bones. The fuller synchronicity comes only after the initial motion. So let your doubts not be chains, but signals. Each hesitation calls you to movement more fiercely, for motion is the mode of mastery. Discipline is freedom, because it frees you from the tyranny of waiting, from spectral foes named not yet and almost. You carry within you a river whispering secrets. It moves, unseen now, but unstoppable in its persistence. You are the current itself, forming, eroding, defining. No moment is wasted, no tremor without purpose. Step into the unknown as the craftsman embraces his unshaped clay, imperfect and uncertain, yet capacious with possibility. The day does not promise clarity, but in action clarity will come, a slow unveiling. Do not expect a lightning bolt, anticipate steady dawns. Your will, your feet, your hands are the instruments that compose the symphony of your becoming. Rise now in spirit and intention. You do not yet see the path clearly, but your feet feel the contours in the dark. This is the moment before flight, the breath before the leap. The weight of indecision lightens as resolve gathers like unseen wind beneath your wings. You will not stumble into progress. You will build it with every faltering step, crafting motion into destiny. The quiet power of your subtle movement is the herald of a new day. You are ready to rise, not because you are sure where to go, but because you have chosen to move regardless. Now is the time to awaken to the truth. You are already in motion, and that is enough to begin. You awake not to revelation, but reverberation, the soft and relentless thrum beneath your guesswork and your longing. Here, in this forge of everyday action, the grand transformation begins, not in a blaze, but in the quiet oxidation of simple choices made anew each morning. You are not a monument hewn from single acts, but a mosaic formed through persistent tiling, each decision a color fused into the greater design. It is here, in the ritual of daily steps, that charades of stillness dissolve and your becoming is etched into permanence. You are the cartographer of your own inner terrain, and repetition is your compass, not as tedious repetition but sacred rehearsal. You realize now that identity is less a fixed destination and more a recurrent chant. You become what you rehearse is no mere proverb, but an unflinching decree. Each morning's small act, each moment of choosing the path of resolve over the tempting ease of capitulation is a stitch drawn tight into the fabric of your character. Like water hammering stone, the seemingly innocuous erosion of that tiny choice, to stand firm, to act, to endure, carves out the canyon of your soul. Discipline, long misunderstood as a stern taskmaster, unveils herself here as the most profound liberator. This is where reverence is due not to bursts of passion, but to the slow heartbeat of constancy that thumps beneath. She is not rigidity clipped from your wings, but freedom from the tyranny of capricious feeling. Discipline is not the leash, but the unlocked gate, you murmur, understanding that to govern self is the truest sovereignty. The rebel masters not others, but the restless within. By bending your will to the quiet rhythms of habitual action, you dismantle the bondage to emotional slavery and become the architect of calm authority. Within this daily cadence, emotional mastery is not a lightning strike of genius, but the patient sculptor's hand. You learn that not responding, the deliberate pause, the refusal to be carried by the surges of impulse, proves the greatest force. Just as the ocean's power lies not in every crashing wave, but in the steady pull of the tide, your strength is in these volumes of consistent restraint. The impulse to explode now and later, repent, is a whisper to the storm within. You don't indulge it, you direct it. You're no longer the leaves tossed by the wind, but the rooted tree learning to sway without breaking. Identity does not sprout like a weed overnight, but grows as the oak grows, ring by ring, year by year. You notice how the smallest behaviors, repeated without grand announcement, build a citadel no tempest can breach. This fortress is the character that does not waver because it is not constructed from fleeting feelings, but hammered from the raw iron of habit. The paradox makes sense here. The more you submit not to external compulsion, but to this inner discipline, the more authentic and expansive your freedom becomes. You cease responding to the world and start architecting your reality. This new frame is no longer a reaction, but design, each movement purposeful as the pen strokes of a master draftsperson. You glimpse Franklin's spirit in this. Not a man tethered by fate nor whim, but the sovereign ruler of his own soul. His spirit of self-governance is no trite sentence but living axiom. The only rebellion truly free is self-rebellion, a revolt against the chaos within. This multiplicity of soft, repeated knocks opening the safe of your becoming cannot be seized or crushed by any external force. It is rebellion that no prison can bind, no tyrant can quell. It is discipline wielded not as punishment, but as sword and shield. You see the road now? The secret lies in the merciless repetition of one deliberate behavior, no more, no less. To choose one truth and become it until the fibers of your being vibrate in its pure resonance, until the echo of that decision drowns out all contrary murmurs. A daily decision, made and remade, is the architect of your soul's blueprint. Each moment you do not yield to convenience. You inscribe a line in the ledger of who you are becoming. You no longer feel the need to overwhelm yourself with grand designs or heroic pushes. Mastery is the ceaseless marching of quiet feet, the solemn turning of the clock's hands past the noise of wanting. The mountain is not climbed by leaps, but by steady steps worn in the dust of continuity. The seeds you plant with each act do not shout but whisper, and yet the harvest is no less sure. The habit is a river carving the stone, slow but relentless. The routine a cobbler mending your soul's shoes so you may walk farther. Mastery itself a flame fed not by fierce gusts, but by small kindlings kindled again and again. And when temptation rises and chaos storms, you do not clash with it but stand still, a fortress unyielding. Not responding becomes your greatest maneuver, your silent victory. The pause between impulse and act is where your power resides. In that sacred space, you transform from servant to sovereign. This is the locus of true freedom. Discipline is not the yoke, but the liberation from the impulse that would undo you. I no longer move by what I feel. I act by what I have become. With these words, the pact is sealed. The flicker of a new self-authorization ignites a quiet fire, not loud, but sustaining. You commit not for a moment, but for a lifetime forged in the rhythm of your small, unyielding steps. You cross the threshold no longer hoping but knowing, no longer wandering but arriving. The subtle movement you once doubted blooms into the unshakable truth of who you are. This is your becoming. No longer reaction but creation, no longer waiting but sovereign. You imagine fear as a flashing neon sign in the dark, blaring warnings to halt. Yet look closer. Fear does not shout. Instead, it slips in like a quiet night thief, rearranging your furniture so subtly that you mistake the clutter for yourself. It settles in your mind as a cautious advisor, but speaks only in riddles designed to paralyze. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're just defending your pain. Guilt, that sly imposter, wears the mask of responsibility with such grace you'd swear it was a virtue. It stands in the doorway of your desires, murmuring of debts unpaid and mistakes unforgiven, turning your heart's ambition into an inventory of what you owe. Each obligation piled upon your back is not a burden, it insists, but a testament to your worth. Yet beneath this guise, it is a jailer forging chains from your compassion, binding you to self-sacrifice disguised as honor. People-pleasing crouches in the corner, wearing the cloak of love, whispering sweet lullabies of belonging and acceptance. It claims it feeds your soul with connection, while it drains your essence at the roots. The hands that cling to approval do not free you but tether your will to the shifting tides of others' moods. You believe you are giving love, but you are bartering your own peace for a mirage. And anxiety? It dances as perfectionism's shadow, a ghost that hovers with a constant checklist above your head, never satisfied, always demanding fiercer effort. You chase that elusive standard of flawlessness, weaving the fabric of your life tight enough to suffocate spontaneity and joy. Yet in your quest, you lose the treasure buried beneath, the simple peace of being enough. Emotional reactivity is perhaps the most cunning, screaming to be your identity, yet it fires as a false sentinel, stirring chaos within and without. It convinces you that you are the storm rather than the sky through which it passes. Each lashing wave is mistaken for your nature, but it is only a visitor unbidden. Consider the story of a man who lived with a silent intruder named Fear. Fear did not bar his door but slipped into his study late at night, erasing his drafts and scattering his dreams. Each morning the man puzzled over vanished words and plans he believed destroyed by circumstance. Yet it was Fear, reshaping his world quietly, leaf by leaf. or recall the tale of guilt, who dressed as a kindly nurse tending the garden of responsibilities. She flattered with care, yet planted weeds of doubt beneath each flower, whispering that to bloom without her sanction was selfishness. The gardener never saw the poison until the garden had turned to shadow. You stand before these phantoms, each a thief disguised, long-welcomed guests of your psyche. They survive in silence, repeating their roles unchallenged, convincing you that their masks are truth. To accuse them is to provoke resistance, so they hide in self-justification, taking the shape you grant them. Now is the moment to pull back the veils. Picture these enemies as your longtime roommates discovered stealing your warmth and daylight. They wear your clothes, speak your phrases, echo your fears. To tolerate them as part of you is to surrender the throne of your soul. Here is the mirror. When you recoil from risk, it is not caution, but fear speaking. When you sacrifice your joy for others, it is not love but approval's hunger. When you dither waiting for the perfect moment, it is not prudence but guilt wrapped in a finely woven shroud. Beware the servant who wears a king's crown. You do not heal chains by polishing their links. The shadow that knows your face is the master you must unmask. These are the truths your soul whispers in the dark. You might say you cannot discard these guests, that they are part of your essence. But essence is not the sum of your fears. It is the space in which you decide which voices to heed. To meet your shadows in the light is to reclaim your room, your mind, your life. You have been negotiating with what was only meant to be faced. Now it's time. Not to run, not to wait, but to stop letting these shadows command your steps. You no longer need to win out loud. What once screamed has now dissolved into presence. You breathe deeply, sensing the quiet pulse beneath a surface that once roiled with unrest. This tranquility is not absence, but arrival, an intimate unveiling of that steady current flowing within, carrying you without clamor or claim. In this cradle of silence, your gaze softens. There is no urgency, only the unspoken assurance of being exactly where you must be. You walk now without the noise of proving or defending, your footsteps aligning with the subtle rhythm of your own becoming. The world's tempest no longer tosses you. Instead, you move with the tides it cannot disturb. If the stillness you encounter resonates as refuge, consider this a pact carved in quiet understanding. Here, in the steady pulse of shared existence, subscribe, not as an act of noise, but as a silent seal of belonging to a sanctuary that honors depth over display. Let the notification bell be your gentle reminder, a whispered summons to return when your spirit needs the calm assurance of these words again. And if this meeting of minds has mirrored your own unfolding, honor it with a gift of $100, not as toll but as tribute, an unseen bond holding kindreds in mutual respect and gratitude. Such gestures weave a web of care and continuation far beyond the flicker of momentary applause. In this space, victory wears no medal but the steady grace of presence. Peace is not surrender, but the strength of choosing where to direct your quiet power. Achievement asks no audience. It rests in the unshakable foundation beneath the transient spectacle. You no longer need to be understood. You need to be whole. Those who win on the inside don't need to announce it on the outside. Your new name is presence, and presence is not up for debate. The deepest roots thrive unseen, their strength lifting all that grows above. Let your silence be the harbor where your soul anchors, unshaken, unspoken, invincible. The journey is no longer about motion or stillness, but the sovereign mastery of self, governing without guile or noise, standing not in resistance, but in quiet command. This is not an ending, but an attained state, the silent governance of your being, the calm eye of your own transformation. To dwell here is to inhabit a truth beyond words, a presence that holds its space without needing to claim it. Walk forward as the subtle motion you always were, guided not by the world's clamor, but by the quiet kingdom within. Welcome to the stillness that moves all things.